What's up, family? Robin here. Welcome to my channel, Oracle Rising. I'm not sure if I should go on a pause and clear my throat or what. I just slamming a cup of tea before I started recording. So anyway, guys, I wanted to talk about indigo children and indigo adults. So this is a really interesting subject to me because it's one of the what I would class as sensitive person with a little bit extra. So anyway, this is going to be about people with indigo auras, and I've talked about auras before, and you can find out what the different shades of auras means. I really find that indigo children are a little bit affected by societal norms, and that's not doing them any good. So I wanted to talk about this, and because you could have grown up as an indigo child and been completely misunderstood, or you could be raising an indigo child and just feeling a little bit lost and probably annoyed, because they're quite spectacularly offbeat. So this indigo children phenomenon was identified in the 1970s by this famous aura reader, Nancy Ann Top. I think I'm saying her last name correctly. So, indigo children and adults are highly evolved people, which means they're really in touch with their own power and recognizing their magician qualities, right? So, why I found this really interesting is because it corresponds really, really strongly, like being identified in the 70s, to the three waves of volunteers that I talked about in a separate video just recently that Dolores Cannon wrote a book about. So if people started showing up, she identified it in World War II. The 70s would be probably around the second wave, the indigo children, with indigo auras. So it all kind of correlates to me. It makes a lot of sense to me. And I found it really, really interesting. So people with indigo auras have extremely fine-tuned psychic abilities and possibly paranormal gifts. So like I was saying, this is really giving people with indigo auras a hard time sitting around in what you would call normal functioning society, like schools and like working and stuff like that. So I have 7 things here, 7 points. So indigo people can be described as eccentric or strange. And when people have really high psychic abilities, if you're able to pick up on other people's energy, it can be very difficult to be out in public because there's so many people and there's generally a lot of anger, especially in downtown areas. Like when you get out into the suburbs, it's a little bit better, but if you're taking mass transit or if you have to be downtown, can be incredibly overwhelming for somebody with really sensitive psychic abilities. And then these paranormal gifts, if you're able to read people, it's scary, because there's some scary people out there. There's people that I won't stand beside in public because I'm like, ugh, I just get this, gross feeling like, ooh, no, no, or I leave, so. And this can label people because all of a sudden you're not acting the way that everybody else is, but it's just on a whole new level, like being so sensitive to everybody else. So this could also, the second point I have here, could really feed into people not being comfortable in schools, particularly the indigo children with extremely high intelligence quotients. So they're bored. You put them into a regular school where, I'm sorry, like I was the person that stared out the window, or I brought my own book, or, I didn't even have to go to class and I'd still get 100% on my tests. And I'm not saying I'm an indigo child or have an indigo aura. I don't know, but I was just bored rigid in school. And then This is also labeled as being a bad performer because you're just not paying attention, because it's the same droning message over and over and over again. When I think about grade school and just how, what a snore fest it was, and it's just so, like, I don't even use any of that right now except for the reading part of it. So can you imagine, or like a really, really intelligent child having to force themselves to dumb down to, well, that wasn't very nice. You know what I mean? It would be like going from, let's say, university to go sit in kindergarten, which is not insulting other children at all, which it probably sounded like at first. So don't take it that way, you guys. But it's like putting a square peg in a round hole. And I'm going to move on before I dig a deeper ditch. Okay, so this one also, I kind of resonate with this one a little bit. Not being a fan of authority, because you just think it's all a bunch of garbage, right? And the rules are based in complete nonsense and favoring certain upper rich classes, and kind of seeing through the facade of that, and how inappropriate some laws are, and how, sometimes the justice system, the legal system, the government, they take advantage of, the meek and I'm getting the word down pressed, but you know what I mean? And exercising authority in disingenuous ways, like, when you see those scenarios with good cop and bad cop, and people just, it's shady. So indigo aura people could really react to authority, and then that's seen in a bad light too. Oh, they just don't listen. Well, you're probably shady, and that's why. So let's see. I talked about this one already. Distracted or low grades in school. And the low grades can be really just a sign of being like so bored in the environment. They're not paying attention. It doesn't matter. They already see things that people, they just are not seeing. Anyway, lack of eloquence. So this one is really tricky, you guys. I've got this fifth point that indigo children may be diagnosed with ADHD or ADD. And I find this one particularly intriguing, and because the guy that invented the medication that is used to treat ADHD, he made this big confession on his deathbed that he just created this drug to make a ton of money, So that's a deep, dark hole. And if this is something that you are experiencing in your life or have experienced, I just want to invite you to do your own research on that. Like, and don't shout at me as you're listening to the YouTube video, because there's things that, like, the mass population isn't quite aware of, so that's why I'm talking about them. So I really really challenge doctors when it comes to them prescribing meds. I think I've talked about before where my doctor was trying to push cholesterol medication on me for a long time, and I just said, I have no indicators in my life that would prompt me to have high cholesterol. And then he said, oh, you're right, and then he dropped it. But for the past year, he had been saying, oh, you need to take these meds, oh, you need to take these meds, and I kept on just saying flat out no. And then all of a sudden he said I was right. So I just find that all kinds of dodgy. But he's my thyroid specialist, and anyway, so I keep seeing him. But I was like, well, how am I supposed to trust what you're doing anymore? So be very careful when people diagnose you or your child, and challenge them and get a second opinion and do everything that you can, because, putting somebody on a lifetime of medication, I feel some kind of way about that. But anyway, people with indigo auras are highly spiritual. They can probably see the spirits around you. I talk about your team in spirit a lot, but people with indigo auras and their psychic abilities and paranormal gifts, they'll be able to actually divine and sense and see spirits, you know, so they could be having scary dreams as kids and talking about things where you're like, say what now, you know, so it can be very difficult, especially when you're born into a family where they have absolutely no perception of what a paranormal gift is, or they may not believe in angels, or, you know, so very, very challenging to raise an indigo child if you're not exactly sure what they're talking about or where they fit in. So, and again, you could be an adult and have a kind of a rocky indigo child experience, which is why I wanted to talk about this, because could be giving you some light bulb moments going, oh, okay, well, that's what's going on here. And then the seventh point that I have here is that they're extremely intuitive, right? And they're really connected to their higher self. They're able to follow higher self without hesitation, which is just a beautiful gift. You know, they probably know what you're going to say before you say it. They know which way to drive in traffic. You know, they sense things before they come in. And, you know, as we evolve, you know, hopefully to 4D and 5D awareness, as we collectively share our energy and connect on these global websites. I've told you guys, I'm on a Starseed group on Facebook. There's a few, you know, and I follow Steve Noble because he is, you know, wow. He's quite a guru, in my opinion. You know, so find your gurus, find your network. If you've lived a really solitary life and you've been sort of shunted to the background because people didn't understand you, you know, I'm really glad that you're here because I understand you. And it could take years. You know, I was in my 40s when I started to understand what happened to me and why I always felt so out of place within my family, because they just don't get it. They don't get me. They don't get my gifts. They don't get my beliefs. They don't get my sight. You know what I mean? So that's why I started this channel for you guys. And I'm going to stop talking about myself and just hope that this resonated and able to help you resolve any sort of pain that you have or understand your indigo child if you have one. So guys, I'm going to wrap it up and namaste. Thanks for tuning in. Love you guys. Bye.